Welcome to Kate as well, who's joined. So welcome to all the attendees who are joining. I can see the numbers climbing up there. We are about 2 minutes till the top of the hour, so we'll start at the top of the hour. Again, welcome to everyone who's joining. We are now just at the top of the hour, so I think we're going to have people continue to join in over the next couple of minutes. But we have a full program today, so I'm going to go ahead and kick off with this SSE quarterly webinar, where we're very pleased to be launching today our Gender Equality and Corporate Leadership Asia benchmark, which is a detailed report on the gender balance of corporate boardrooms across issuers in the region of Asia. So we're reaching from, say, Pakistan in the west to Japan in the east and everything in between. 17 markets in total, and we're going to go into the details shortly. The program for today, we're very honored to have with us the Mohammed Swift, the CEO of Bursa Malaysia, as well as Veronica Rosario, the General Counsel from the Philippine Stock Exchange, as well as our colleagues from the IFC and UN Women who are working in Asia on issues related to women's economic empowerment and gender equality, and they will share with us broader regional perspectives on what's happening there. The report that we're launching today is available on the SSE website. We'll post a link to that in the chat, so you're free to download it. It's a short document. The numbers do the talking. With it, it has a few observations in it, but mainly the numbers do the talking. And so I would like to say that during this webinar, everybody's free to post questions in the chat. If you have questions you'd like us to ask, if we have time at the end of this webinar, we'll post your questions to the speakers. So feel free at any time just to drop questions in the chat, and I'll raise that with one of the speakers, or if I miss something, maybe one of my colleagues can bring that to my attention. But feel free to make use of the chat box. And we like to make these calls as interactive as possible. And of course, the topic we're discussing today is a challenge in all markets around the world. And certainly the markets that are on the call today, I'm sure, can benefit from sharing experiences. So with that, I'm going to dive right into the report itself. This is the sort of star of the show. What are the numbers? Show me the numbers, if I can paraphrase a line from a movie. So this is the main heart of the report. You'll find this when you download it, which is a table that ranks all the exchanges in the region based on the proportion of women sitting on boards. We would like to congratulate Bursa Malaysia for topping this list by a significant margin. I'd also like to add some commentary just on some of the other columns, some new features that we've added to this year's report. We've added a column on percentage of firms with at least 30% women on board. Now, 30% is seen as a minimum threshold, at which point it really is a tipping point for integrating and promoting gender equality in the boardroom. There are some international civil society groups like the 30% Club that have long advocated for this. And it sort of gives you more of a sense of what's happening in the marketplace. So where in Bursa Malaysia, on average, 26% of board seats are held by women. it's 44% of firms have at least 30% women on the board, which is very impressive in that market. And compared to markets around the world, that is a very impressive figure. And you'll also see the column we have in red, which is kind of our bad column, if you will. And these are percent of firms with all male boards. They do persist in significant numbers in a number of markets. You'll see, of course, that in leading markets, they tend to be minimized small single digits, but in other markets, they're still significant. On average across the region, it's still 20%. So it's not as if we're discussing an issue where all the problems have been solved and we can move on and pat ourselves on the back. There are still significant challenges here for creating awareness and change in some companies and some markets. You'll see also percent chair position held by women and CEO positions held by women. These numbers are small, much smaller than what you'll find on boards, and that is true. This pattern is true around the world, and that is a challenge. But that's something that we'll look at going forward. But again, we'd like to congratulate some of the leaders in this space. It is an observation too that all the top 5 exchanges come from Southeast Asia. I don't know why that is. What is the magic formula in Southeast Asia? But again, it's impressive, and we'll hear today from Malaysia and the Philippines. Maybe they can shed some light on that. So this is the data. The link is in the chat. You can download this and look at this while we're hearing from our speakers today. But I don't want to take too much time away from our speakers. So I'm going to go on to introduce them, and then I'm going to turn off the slide so we can just have a conversation. But first off, we're going to hear a keynote address from Mohammed Swift, the CEO of Bursa Malaysia. Again, congratulating Malaysia on the performance on this. I want to be clear that on this factor, exchanges do not bear the responsibility for what's happening in the marketplace. And so when they take the credit, they take the credit on behalf of the entire marketplace, including their government actors, civil society actors, and the actions of their issuers. But exchanges are a focal point for this conversation. They are the intersection point of all of these different stakeholders. And exchanges, as we'll hear, have played a strong role in the past in promoting board diversity and gender balance. So we do congratulate Bursa Malaysia on their role on this, and we congratulate the Philippine Stock Exchange for being in the top 5 on this list. It's a very long list of exchanges around the region, and we look forward to hearing about what's been happening in their marketplaces. And then we'll hear from our colleagues Kate and Katya from IFC and UN Women, who can maybe put what's happening at these exchanges into broader context in the region of efforts from international organizations to promote gender equality in Asia. So with that introduction, I'd like to invite Mohammed to unmute his mic and take the floor, and I will turn off the slide deck so we can just have that conversation.
Thank you, Anthony. Kate, Katya, and Ms. Veronica del Rosario, General Counsel, Philippine Stock Exchange, fellow UNSSE partner exchanges, market participants, standard setters, as well as representatives from international organization regulatory bodies. Ladies and gentlemen, a very good afternoon from Malaysia and good morning, depending on where you may be around the world. Let me begin by thanking UNSSE for the opportunity to say a few words on the occasion of the report of the launch of Gender Equality in Corporate Leadership in Asia 2023. It is with much pride and a sense of responsibility that I address you today. On behalf of Bursa Malaysia, our listed issuers, we are deeply honoured to be recognised as the exchange in the Asia region to top the regional ranking for gender equality at board level. This recognition, we celebrate that Bursa Malaysia listed companies that have taken positive action to inculcate gender diversity in the board compositions. Their commitment and progress on this front is a testament to the range of benefits derived from having a gender diverse board: improved decision-making, enhanced ability to attract talent, increased resilience and stronger corporate governance, while of course contributing to nation building amongst others. While we're incredibly pleased for this recognition, I would also like to acknowledge my regional counterparts, distinguished capital market partners and esteemed members for efforts and progress in your respective markets. This report serves not only as a testament to our collective commitment to championing diversity, but also as a powerful symbol of progress we're making in the region. Together, we are rewriting the narrative of corporate leadership in Asia. Through our shared efforts, we're overcoming the Asian culture bias and steadily building a region where women are rightfully empowered to lead alongside male counterparts in the boardroom. Malaysia has long recognised that gender equality is a catalyst for social progress, economic prosperity, and the cornerstone of human rights. The push for greater representation of women on listed boards has been driven in part by Malaysia's conviction that gender equality is a fundamental driver of sustainable and inclusive growth. Malaysia's milestone is a culmination of considered efforts at a national level, as Anthony was mentioning, and market efforts championed by the capital market regulators and numerous organisations. Together, this has been done through a comprehensive, phased approach that harnesses advocacy, corporate awareness and buy-in, as well as regulatory measures, of course. Allow me to share with you some of these efforts. To start, initiatives at national level driven by the government and regulatory support. Bursa Malaysia closely collaborates with the Securities Commission, Malaysia's capital market regulator, in cultivating good corporate governance. Since 2000, the first edition of the Malaysian Code of Corporate Governance, or MCCG, has earmarked board diversity as one of its key focus areas. Since then, the MCCG has undergone several iterations to reflect evolving standards, including women's representation on boards. The fourth iteration in 2017 mandated disclosure of gender diversity policies, targets, and measures for companies. And large companies were expected to have at least 30% women directors on boards. The Securities Commission also set targets of eliminating all male boards in the top 100 companies by the end of 2018 and achieving a minimum of 30% women directors in public listed companies, or PLCs, by 2020. In 2018, the government of Malaysia declared it the year to empower women, reinforcing the country's commitment to gender diversity as a whole. To accelerate the progress in women's boards participation, the 2021 edition of MCCG recommended a minimum of 30% women directors across all boards. Additionally, listed companies were required to disclose their gender diversity policy for senior management in their annual reports, in addition to board's gender diversity policy. Similarly, Institutional Investors Council Malaysia, comprising of government-linked investment companies, set clear expectations in their Malaysia Code for Institutional Investors 2022 for investee companies to achieve at least 30% female board representation within 3 years. The Malaysian Finance Minister in 2022 also announced that government-linked investment companies would lead in fulfilling the government's mandate for 30% representation on boards. Alongside these targeted aspirations and best practices put forth for the market, Bursa Malaysia also spearheaded numerous advocacy programs. For example, the exchange commenced our inaugural diversity experience program in 2019 rather, and since then has continued with an annual thematic training programs for PLCs. To further advance the agenda, we've also collaborated closely with various organisations, including, of course, our regulator, the Securities Commission, the Institute of Corporate Directors of Malaysia, the Malaysian chapter of the 30% Club Malaysia, and Lead Women. The latter two are both business-led gender parity advocacy groups. We also upped the ante in disclosure for PLCs. Bursa Malaysia's Enhanced Sustainability Reporting Framework, announced in September 2022, designated the diversity theme as one of the 11 common sustainability matters and therefore regarded as material for all listed companies, regardless of size or sector. This signifies our commitment to continue to solidify the diversity agenda as a whole in the marketplace. To tackle the phenomenon of some PLCs continuing the practice of having an all-male board, Bursa Malaysia implemented the listing requirement by the 1st of June 2023. All PLCs must appoint at least one woman board member. Following that, very soon by year end, main market PLCs for the financial year end 31st December 2023 are required to disclose their diversity indicators to show improvements over time of percentage of directors by gender and age group and percentage of employees by gender and age group for each employee category. Similarly, ACE market PLCs will adopt enhanced sustainability disclosure on a staggered basis, with disclosures of prescribed sustainability information annual reports issued in financial years ending on or before the 31st of December 2024. Despite the progress we have made, it is crucial to acknowledge that gender equality remains an ongoing journey. We must look beyond this symbolic threshold and set our sights on a more ambitious goal. Over time, perhaps Malaysia can grow beyond the 30% mark and aim for dimensions of diversity at all levels in all our corporations. Ladies and gentlemen, globally and on a regional level, we've yet to achieve parity in the corporate leadership roles. To unlock the full potential of diverse leadership, championing equal opportunities and dismantling persistent conscious and unconscious barriers are important. Capital market exchanges wield significant influence beyond mere transaction platforms. As I've said, we are architects of corporate culture and drivers of societal norms. Recognizing this, the UNSSC and IFC play a pivotal role in encouraging exchanges as catalysts for gender diversity. The call to action for regional exchanges is clear: to be pioneers in setting new standards for diversity and inclusivity. By doing so, we not only elevate the status of our markets, but we contribute to a broader societal shift towards equality. It is incumbent on us as market leaders to go beyond mere compliance and to actively promote culture where diversity is ingrained in our corporate ethos. The success of regional exchanges in fostering gender diversity will resonate far beyond boardrooms, influencing the way businesses operate and even nudging perceptions in society among young adults. In closing, I would like to thank and congratulate the UNSSC, IFC and UN Women, as well as all stakeholders present here today for the launch of the Asia Market Report on your respective successes in being catalysts for gender diversity. I'd also like to once again applaud my peer regional exchanges for your steadfast efforts and initiatives in advancing gender equality and diversity and contributing significantly to the shared goals of Sustainable Development Goal 5. Today's event is not just a launch of a report, it is a catalyst, a driver for change. It is a call to embrace diversity, not in terms of gender and not to meet an obligation, but as a strategic imperative. May our collective efforts propel us towards a more inclusive world. The capital market stands as a powerful force for positive change. Thank you very much, Anthony. And thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Mohammed, and congratulations again to the exchange and to all the stakeholders you've been working with. I think some of the key messages there is for takeaway messages for me is the diverse range of strategies that you've taken, engaging with a wide range of stakeholders, from regulators to civil society to the companies themselves, engaging with voluntary targets, some mix of mandatory rules, integrating the topic into disclosure guidelines to facilitate a conversation. So there's no one single silver bullet, if you will, but it's a range of activities involving a range of stakeholders. So I think that's maybe a lesson for other markets. I'd like to now go to Veronica from the Philippine Stock Exchange, which again is also one of the leading exchanges in Asia. And Veronica, maybe you can tell us a little bit about the Philippine Stock Exchange, what they've been doing on this issue in their market. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you, Anthony. And congratulations again to Bursa Malaysia for topping the list. To UNSSE, IFC, and UN Women, thank you for inviting the Philippine Stock Exchange to be part of this panel. This is my second time attending the launch of this benchmark report. We're very pleased to note that PSE had a good showing in the regional ranking for gender equality in corporate leadership. Comparing the 2022 and 2023 data, we see that there's been a slight increase in the percentage of board seats in chair position held by women. So I won't mention the numbers anymore because it was already flashed by Anthony earlier. But we'd like to note that while the percentage increases were small, these are positive developments nonetheless, and something that we're very happy about as an advocate of gender equality. We acknowledge that gender equality mindset of PSE-listed companies have contributed significantly to our ranking this year. And we are very fortunate to have proactive companies that have taken conscious and concrete steps or efforts to ensure that women are represented in their boards and management teams. despite the absence of a rule mandating minimum female representation in the board and management. And this is true not only for companies that have big market capitalization, but also true for mid and small cap companies, which see to it that women take prominent leadership roles in their respective companies. So while there are bright spots, we also acknowledge that there remains to be a big room for improvement. For instance, we encounter token appointments of women just to get a decent score in gender equality ranking. And we also see companies that are adamant about keeping an all-male board. And Anthony, you're correct when you said earlier that we do not want to take credit for the practices implemented by listed companies in terms of gender equality, because we believe that the culture of creating gender equality is something that should begin with the company's leaders, and the tone should really be set at the top. But we hope that years of advocating gender equality may have prompted some publicly listed companies to take a look at how they can improve on the same within their organizations. So we hope to set an example to our constituents in the Philippines. The PSE continues to promote gender equality in corporate leadership, and to date have hosted sessions to showcase best practices of leading publicly listed companies in this field. In fact, in our webinar this year, which was attended by listed companies, we also had the local representative of UN Women give insights on the topic of corporate leadership. So every time we conduct these activities, we note the high level of interest among publicly listed companies to see more women succeed in the boardroom and in C-suite positions. As for PSE, we believe in walking the talk. In our case, gender equality is observed from recruitment to hiring to promoting our staff to management positions. In fact, 52% of our employees are women. Department heads who are being groomed to succeed to management positions are 60% women. And in the board categories, of the 3 board categories, each has a woman director. So by providing equal employment and leadership opportunities for women, we hope that PSE is able to encourage other companies to do the same. In closing, I'd like to reiterate that PSE knows the importance and advantages of having women in the board and management of companies. Along this line, PSE will continue to advance gender equality in leadership roles among our stakeholders, especially listed companies. We will also continue to collaborate with our partners in this advocacy to speak on this topic and illustrate why it is in the best interest of companies to empower women and give them equal opportunity in employment, career advancement, and selection for a leadership role. Again, thank you to UNSSE, IFC, and UN Women for this opportunity, and congratulations on the release of your report on gender equality on corporate boards. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Veronica. And again, great work in the Philippines, and we love to see the progress being made there, as well as in other markets in the world. And of course, it's the exchange plays a very important role in bringing that conversation together and focusing the energy. And we hope that the reports that we're launching today and that we'll continue to do is a useful benchmark to track progress over time. And with that, I'd like to go to my colleague Kate from IFC. Of course, IFC is our partner in producing this report, and we've worked with for the last few years in this area, and that we work with in other areas in promoting gender equality. Kate, you're based in the region. I invite you to unmute your mic and share your thoughts, not only about this report, but maybe how it connects to broader issues across the region.
Okay, thank you very much. Good morning, good afternoon. On behalf of IFC, thank you very much for the strong collaboration with UNSSE and UN Women, and really pleased to be here. And also want to congratulate Malaysia and Philippines, and of course, all of the stock exchanges who've been on this report and really making great strides in this such an important topic. So we really commend all of you for your work, and also the work that you're doing and you've been sharing on, promoting gender equality in capital markets. And IFC really stands ready to continue our partnership in this space. So I'd like to, spend just a few minutes commenting on some of the efforts of IFC. Yes, I'm here. I'm based in Bangkok, Thailand, and I'm leading our environment, social governance advisory across the region, where we're working with stock exchanges, but of course, we're also working, as was mentioned earlier, with a number of other stakeholders, because bringing everyone together is so crucial to make efforts in this regard. So we do leverage stock exchanges to advance women leaders as a key component of our global program on women on boards and business leadership. And our partnership helps us to scale up and to really try to reach as many parties as possible. And this ranking of over 1,700 listed companies in Asia really provides exchanges, issuers, the regulators, and other stakeholders valuable benchmarking about the state of gender equality in their markets, and really look forward to having our clients and partners use the information and monitor and review and evaluate how things are going over time. And as Anthony, as you've already shared and you've provided the details of the findings and the analysis of the report, I just want to add that awareness is clearly growing among the exchanges about the role that they can play in advancing gender equality in the Asia region. But of course, still, much more remains to be done in this area. For example, the deficit in publicly available data on the leadership of listed companies highlights the fundamental role that stock exchanges play in improving and promoting disclosure and transparency practices of their issuers. And exchanges can include indicators on disclosure or listing requirements. They can also create data products that highlight performance on gender equality. And this type of action can directly strengthen market performance. And it's increasingly recognized that advancing gender equality through business operations and value chains means better talent, higher productivity, more customers, and better societal outcomes. So there is clear, evidence around this. But however, if we're going to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals, of course, we need to move fast. So gender equality is a high priority for IFC, and engaging women as leaders is a key strategic priority in our institution's gender strategy, which really, permeates throughout all of our operations. And IFC is contributing to this shift towards gender diverse boards and senior management by building capacity, generating knowledge, raising awareness, and adding to the existing business case on the value of gender diverse and inclusive business leadership in emerging markets as part of its environment and social and governance work that we're carrying out in the regions and globally. So across our sustainability agenda, we've already been engaging with a number of stock exchanges. So I just want to give a few examples in the Asia region. For example, in Vietnam, we've collaborated with the 2 stock exchanges and the State Securities Commission on the first corporate governance code for public companies that includes a provision for at least 2 female board members or 30% female board directors. And we have a large ESG program in Vietnam continuing this work. We did the similar interventions in Laos and in the Philippines, working with exchanges and regulators. And in Bangladesh, we partnered with the Dhaka Stock Exchange and the Bangladesh Securities and Exchange Commission to produce a directory of 507 female board members underlining board position skills and experience. And we did the same in Sri Lanka, as well as a research piece related to the top 30 listed companies, where we found gender diverse boards outperformed all male boards in return on equity and return on assets. And similarly, in last year in Papua New Guinea, we helped the exchange introduce a new corporate governance code to enhance standards for listed companies with recommendations to increase female board directors, while also emphasizing the importance of disclosure of gender pay and policies and addressing gender-based violence. And I think the inclusion in this code in Papua New Guinea was very strong on the gender-related elements. And in Indonesia, IFC produced the Board Diversity in ASEAN study, revealing that companies with more women on boards reflect better financial performance, and then partnered with the Indonesian Stock Exchange to widely disseminate this across Indonesia. And more recently in Nepal, I'd like to highlight that we recently signed an agreement with the Nepal Stock Exchange, with NEPSE, to really provide guidance, support in this area, as well as in around climate. And through an initiative called Powered by Women, where we worked with 19 hydropower companies to promote gender equality and gender diversity, we had a component that was specifically focused on increasing women in leadership, and we saw a 19% increase in women in leadership positions, both board and management positions, over a 2.5-year period, and 53% having women-led board of directors committees to really amplify the women's voices there. So a lot of effort going on in also smaller countries as well. So we definitely believe that empowering women and building their capacity really boost confidence. And this is necessary to help them to participate in leadership roles and to contribute to decision making. And we know in turn, this really helps to improve businesses' equity, reputation, productivity, and sustainability. And also annual data collection in this program will also allow stock exchanges to view their market's progress year on year. And clearly our continued, collaboration with UNSSC, UN Women, and other organizations is really critical, to speed up this process, to highlight it, to amplify the voices, to give more recognition to really what's happening across the Asia region in advancing gender equality and across the capital markets. So I also like to echo what Mohammed said, where you said diversity really needs to be ingrained in our ethos, and really agree with that point. So thank you for the opportunity for IFC to be here, and wish you all the best as we move forward in this discussion and our efforts. Thanks.
Thank you very much for that, Kate. And again, the very rich activities that you're doing in a number of countries, Vietnam, Bangladesh, Nepal, and others in the region, working on the ground to help move the needle on women in corporate leadership, as well as other dimensions of gender equality. And of course, I'll speak also on behalf of your colleague Lottie, who's back at IFC headquarters, that any support we can provide you there in Asia, do let us know. With that, I'd like to go to my colleague at UN Women, Katja. You're also based in the region. I think you're based in Bangkok also, is that correct? Yes, okay. Katja, you have the floor, and I think you had some slides to share with us, and we look forward to, again, hearing a bit more about what's happening in the region, the broader context.
Great, thank you so much, everyone. And I'm also going to start off with really heartfully thanking UNSSE and also IFC for the great collaboration to get this report and a very important data out there. And I'd really like to congratulate Malaysia and the Philippines as well for your leadership here in the region, which is extremely important to really create sort of what many of the speakers up front have mentioned, that sort of effect which pushes other stock exchanges and other players into really driving more action. So the power of data. And I'm going to share a little bit more data, which is complementing what we have seen before on this report we've launched today. UN Women has recently also launched a report which was called Trends and Opportunities to Advance Gender Equality in Business in Asia and the Pacific. And as it is important to really make strides in sort of women on boards in stock exchanges, issuers, listed companies, but also the broader sort of market. So we've really looked at a data set in the region of private sectors to really kind of see where is the action going and where are sort of the priorities and where do we see most progress and where are we lagging behind. I'm not sure if everyone here in the virtual room is familiar with the concept of the international recognized framework, which is called the Women's Empowerment Principles, which is a set of 7 principles, which actually really guides companies from their corporate leadership over their activities and actions in the workplace, in the marketplace, and in the communities. So it's really a strong framework, which is more than 10 years old now. And what we have been seeing over the past years is there's a strong uptake of companies in the region here, but also globally. So there are for the moment more than 7,000 companies that have committed to that framework, and many of them are listed companies as well. And we have been working very closely with the stock exchanges in the Philippines and Malaysia and others around the region to actually mobilize their listed companies to join that community of web signatories. Now, what we've done last year, we thought, you know what, we have so much data now, we have so much companies that are actually committed here. Why not seeing and surveying these companies and really look where they are kind of seeing priorities and what has changed over the years? I think, Anthony, you said it in the beginning, or someone said it. It's not where we stand now, but the pace of change that is important. And I really, really like that. So we have kind of used that data set and really kind of asked last year, which was still sort of at the end of COVID. So we also had put in questions sort of, how did COVID actually change the company's sort of way of thinking about gender equality, diversity, and sustainability at large? And we actually see that the companies, and again, I need to say it's a biased set. It's companies that have made a commitment that they want to advance their action on gender equality. So it's not representing the whole region. It's really that biased set. But it shows that really they agree that change happened after COVID, and that their leaderships really have rethought a little bit on their sustainability strategies, but also diversity and inclusion strategies. Now, we don't have time for this today. I'll put a link in the chat afterwards. We do have a full report that really articulated and really came with 7 trends that we have seen what happened in the region. And 2 of these trends, or 3 actually, are very kind of essential to the conversation that we have today. And I would like to just unpack them a little bit more. So one is really, we see that more companies make commitments, yet their actions lag behind. We also see that the first actions that companies take is really advancing the conversation and the actions around women in leadership. And trend number 7, where we do see where's the biggest kind of lagging behind and where fewest actions are happening, is really that we see companies have commitments, but they don't necessarily measure or report on them. Yeah. So what we see in trend 1, as I said, commitments went up, and we have in the region now more than 2,500 companies to the WEBs community, which is a really impressive result. And we also see that the intent why companies commit actually and really drive this forward is really because most of them say it's the right thing to do. So that's a good thing. But we do also see the data shows us, and if you look in the report, you see more. It's also because companies see that it drives also business benefits to them. So it's not only a human rights conversation, it's also a business case conversation. Now, we've kind of looked, what are the areas where most progress is made, or where the company think most progress is made? Promoting and women in leadership is on the top here. And where do we see on the other side, where do we see what's really lacking behind? As I said before, only 18% of the surveyed companies really mentioned that they are reporting on gender targets. So there's a bit of a disconnect on where the sort of intent is and where action starts, but also the disconnect in terms of how are we transparent and accountable for the actions that they are taking. Now, so as I said before, we do see sort of that promoting women in leadership is really kind of a focus area for many corporates. Again, the set of companies that we have surveyed is reaching from listed companies to also SMEs. So it's not only sort of the large multinational corporates, but again, we do see on this promoting in leadership, again, only 23% have really a goal and a target in here. And what we also see in secondary data across ASEAN, and we have seen that Southeast Asia stock exchange is ranking in the top 5. And we do see also in the region from our database that Southeast Asia is the front runner. But even here, only 24% of women are actually in senior leadership positions. So we still have a way to go, even to the 30% critical benchmark. Now, just to close off, as I said, in terms of reporting, which is and seems to be the biggest sort of issue, we also have used this research to actually talk to stock exchanges. So we have not only surveyed companies that are part of the Women's Economic empowerment principles family, but also sort of other stakeholders. And now what have we seen? What have we heard? First of all, the companies themselves really agree that governments, regulators, and policymakers do have an essential role. So the most leading companies that we also talked with, they are telling us, as long as there's no guidance, as long as there's no target, it really doesn't push the needle. So we need to get to something like this. And I would love to hear from my colleagues from Bursa and also from the Philippines. In Thailand here, we have this conversation that setting a target or setting actually a mandatory sort of quota is very controversial discussed. But what we've heard from many is sort of a guidance helps already. So that 30% guidance can push the needle. And so I think this is really a call to action for stock exchanges to do that, and regulators together to really push that needle and maybe bring really companies on the table that are progressive and that really can also help to put peer pressure in their relevant industries. And let me close with saying that there's an exciting opportunity. I don't know who is in the room. I saw there are many, many participants, but I cannot see who's kind of stock exchanges or not. But as many of you might know, that every year in March, IFC, UN Women, SSE, and in some countries are always having an initiative which is called Ring the Bell, which really brings sort of at the stock exchanges companies together to really advance and to advocate for gender equality. And I think it would be great for the ones that are here. Why not planning something for next year together and be involved and be more active to drive that forward? And also the data, Anthony, that you have really well put together in this report, I think would be a really good driver to create more collective actions. So with this, I'll leave you and stop sharing my screen.
Thank you very much for that, Katja. Very interesting look at what's going on with the WEPs. That's something, of course, that we've been promoting among many exchanges who have also signed up to the WEPs and have been promoting among our companies. Katja, before we started this webinar, when we were just kind of warming up this morning, you were noting that UN Women is engaged directly with a number of exchanges. I think you've worked with Bursa Malaysia and so on. Can you tell us a little bit about that? If there are exchanges on this call that would like to do something more, and they want to pick up the phone and call UN Women and say, let's work together, what kind of projects would UN Women have to offer exchanges?
No, and I'm also actually looking in the participant list. I see also a lot of our country colleagues that are actually here. So I'm in our regional office, just to make this clear. So we are supporting our country offices, guiding them on some of this work. So I would really kind of say, reach out to the UN Women local offices across the region. I think in almost every office, and some more and some less, we do have people that are working particularly on that priority to advance gender equality in the private sector. And this entails working very strategically with stock exchanges and the security exchange commissions. So really that would be my first call. And do this quickly, because I think there's really the opportunity, and I look also to Kate from IFC here, just saying for next year, really for Ring the Bell is in March, it's not long. So I think we are very open to actually hear and take requests and look into on how can we make this a more meaningful event and invite more stakeholders and maybe others that are not already converted. I think that's sometimes the issue that we have. We bring the converted in the room, but not the ones that are not. So I think it would be great if you could do that.
Thanks for that, Katja. And this is something we always remind all the exchanges on the call. Of course, our partners at IFC and UN Women, one of the great advantages is that they have offices in countries around the world. So while, of course, the SSE is happy to provide you with as much support as we can, sometimes nothing substitutes from having a local who can walk across the street and talk to you in person and focus on specific projects on the ground. Kate, I don't know if you also wanted to jump in on that topic about, what could exchanges who might be able to reach out to IFC in the region. You've mentioned that you've already worked with some exchanges in the region.
Yeah, no, definitely. Similarly, as I mentioned, we sign agreements with stock exchanges. So there's sometimes we're being asked, to help and improve like their corporate governance code or expand it, like in the case of P&G, to include, different elements related to gender. That's sort of like one area. Of course, there's lots of training and capacity building on different topics to the stock exchanges and the companies. So we can do a lot in that area as well as, research. I mean, globally, my colleagues, as well as in the region, are conducting a lot of different types of research, and stock exchanges can really play a role in helping to contribute to that research. In addition to, as Katya mentioned, like the Ring the Bell, which is, of course, a great opportunity to all come together. But then certainly we want to continue to sustain that over the year with different activities. So yeah, we do seem to have a lot of agreements with many of the stock exchanges in Asia, but certainly for those that we don't, we're happy to, have conversations to discuss and see if there's areas, where we can come together and work on that. So thanks.
That's great. And it's, again, the Ring the Bell for Gender Equality. I think most exchanges in the region are also already engaged on this. It's an important event, but it's the beginning of a conversation. It's not the end of a conversation. And of course, the kinds of things that we're talking about today are how you move from awareness to action. Some of the things that Katya highlighted in our slides, commitment to results. So on that front, Veronica, I'm going to ask you a nearly impossible question to answer, but let's see how you do. Philippine Stock Exchange is in one of the top 5 markets on this metric in the region. If I were to magically transport you to one of the bottom 5 markets in this region, what would you do in your job? I understand that gender equality, of course, is a very complex topic. Part of it relates to local cultural issues and so on. But what are the lessons learned from a top 5 market that could maybe be transported to a bottom 5 market? What would you tell your colleagues if they were to call you up and say, what can we do to be more like the Philippines market?
Yeah, thanks for that. I think capacity building, as Kate mentioned, is very important. So that's actually what we're focusing on now. Because in the Philippines, there's no rule mandating a minimum number of female representatives in the board and management. So what we're doing is we conduct trainings, capacity building programs to enhance the said company's knowledge about what gender equality is, what it really means, what it takes to achieve it, and what are the benefits to listed companies of having a diverse board in terms of gender equality. So I guess that would really help the exchanges. I mean, they can start with that.
Great, thanks for that. And that's a great segue to, I'd like to you emphasize capacity building. And I'd like to call on my colleague, Tiffany Grabsky, who is here with us. Tiffany is, many of you will know her as the head of the SSE Academy, who leads our training activities, capacity building activities around the world. And Tiffany, you have developed with IFC and UN Women a new training course on gender equality that you've done some pilots already, but you're going to be ramping up in Q1 next year. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Anthony. And thanks to all the speakers. I've been learning a lot from all of your lessons as well, too, that we can hopefully impart in the global market as we roll out our training. So you might have already been aware of some work we've been doing with IFC, UN Women, and also Columbia University, because we all discussed about maybe a year ago that there is complexity in this topic, and it's not so straightforward as to, one simple training program. You can probably never learn enough about this topic because it's constantly evolving and really differs from one area to the next. So we started with the plan of doing, a short capacity building global program that allowed, consistent global training around the world. And we soon realized that short was not going to cut it because this topic is, as Anthony said, so complex, and you need time to discuss, to think it through, to have activities, to be able to put it in the local context. So we've actually developed a 4-hour training program that we piloted with stock exchanges, and now we're rolling out for stock exchanges to host for their market. So we'd be really happy for any stock exchange that wants to run this training in their market to reach out to us. they can email any of us or just the info@sseinitiative.org email address. Just to give you a quick preview, Lottie and I just recently launched this at the World Investment Forum in UNCTAD. And it is a two-part training program. So we have two parts with 4 modules. And in the first part, we're really looking at module 1, which is preparation, and module 2, which is alignment. And this really comes down to what Mohammed was talking about, that cultural shift, really understanding what gender equality really means. And what we also heard in the presentation from Katya about this not just being a human rights case, but also a business case. So looking at those kind of 2 angles of it. So in the module on preparation, we're talking about how participants can really build a foundational understanding of gender equality. And we do that through an overview of the landscape, of the language, and of the purpose. And that goes back to that both business case and human rights case, of course. Then we go into aligning our practices. We know from working with stock exchanges around the world that there's really an importance of having both kind of a global set of principles or standards that we can all work towards, but also then making that local, making sure it fits the local culture and the local context. So we talk a lot about what Katya was introducing with the WEPs, the Women Empowerment Principles, and how those can be used really as a global guiding principle, but then also looking at local requirements and peer practices and making sure that it fits within the local context and making that balance between global and local. Then in the second module or the second session where we come back for another 2 hours, we really look at then what does this mean in your business? How do you implement that? And then how do you communicate that? What does it look like in your disclosure? So in our third module on implementation, we're looking at helping participants to capture value in implementing gender equality initiatives. And we do that through an overview of market promotion and market products that have a gender lens. So for example, we have a guest speaker from Luxembourg Stock Exchange there talking about gender bonds and what it means to then have a gender lens applied to bonds as, for example, a co-benefit in bonds. We also have Bloomberg, their Gender Equality Index team, joining us for that module to talk about how indices are used and what that means for companies in terms of promotion. And then our final module is communication. Stock exchanges play a really important role in helping their markets communicate these topics. What do we want to see in our sustainability reports or in our annual reports related to those diversity metrics that we've been talking about? And so in that final module, we look at how to guide report preparers on disclosing gender-related information and how to communicate internally also within your organization on these topics to try to advance it. So we're really looking forward to launching that program and having stock exchanges host it for their market. I really encourage anyone that wants to do that to reach out to us. But I also encourage those other training and capacity building that Veronica is talking about. You can never have too much training in your market. So I think we need to have multiple initiatives moving towards building capacity to try to reach as many people with this topic as possible. And we look to help you in that journey. I think maybe, Anthony, just to close, I'll throw it back at you, because one of the areas we've been talking about in the communication angle of the module is really those targets we're setting and the metrics we're setting and making sure that not only are they consistent globally, but consistently year on year within one organization, and making sure we're using the same definitions and we're not changing to try to make things look better, that we're really being honest about where we're heading towards and why. What is the benefit of us heading towards that pathway? And so we're hoping to work more with stock exchanges on that too. And I'll send that back to Anthony.
Sure. Thanks for that, Tiffany. There was a question from Anna Hill from the Japan Exchange about how much the training has changed since the pilot. I don't know if there's any key pilot. I know we do evolve and adapt based on feedback from participants.
It's actually changed quite a bit. So we really appreciate all of the feedback that the stock exchanges did provide us. We have changed it to make the learning journey a little bit easier to follow. So previously we were following a lot more the outline of our guidance for stock exchanges on gender equality. And through that pilot, what we realized is that was too geared to stock exchanges, not necessarily for their markets. So now we've adapted it and we use the same kind of 4 modules and 4-step process that we have in our ISSB training. So companies will begin to get quite familiar with this 4-step process and moving through those 4 modules, and helps kind of put it into perspective as to where they are in the learning journey. So again, really appreciate everyone who joined that pilot and helped us make sure that we were being very clear in our communication.
I think that's useful also, Tiffany, that people start to build skills. If you're a sustainability officer and you're focused on climate, some of those skills can be portable to other sustainability issues like gender equality. Anna, you also asked about possible to get detailed overview of how the contents look. Yes, you could just reach out to us. We're happy to have a conversation with you and see how look into opportunities for hosting this training in your market. As always, with all SSE Academy work, this is at no cost for the exchange or the participants, and we're very grateful for our development partners like IFC and others who make this possible, including our official supporters. So we're grateful to all of you as well. We're getting close to the top of the hour, and I appreciate all the feedback and comments that have come in. I'd like to just wrap up by recalling a quote from the CEO of the London Stock Exchange a couple of years ago at COP26. So in the context of climate, it was Julia Hoggett. She said something that I thought was direct, simple, and yet profound. She said, in the context of climate, she said, this is a very complex topic and it's difficult, and we should be allowed to say that. And I think the same is also true for gender equality and promoting gender equality in marketplaces. It's a complex topic. It's difficult. We are all allowed to say that. But I think the key lesson learned from those that have done well in this in advancing metrics in this space is that if you do nothing, nothing will happen. And so unless in your market, and I speak really to exchanges in particular who are at the bottom end of these scales, if you can be in the same situation 10 years from now, and we can have the exact same conversation 10 years from now, if you do nothing right now. So you need to start now if you want to change tomorrow. And the good news is you're not alone. There are many exchanges within the SSE network that are more than happy to share best practices in this space. There's a friendly competition in this space, but it's just that, it's friendly. And I'm sure they'll be happy to get on a phone call with you and share their experiences. There are a lot of different markets that have taken different approaches. Some have had mandatory rules, but many have had voluntary practices that have also been very successful. So you can find something that fits your marketplace. We have produced the IFC and UN Women with SSE. We provided a guidance to exchanges of what you can do. These are practical steps based on what other exchanges have done. You can download that from our website. So again, you don't have to start with a blank piece of paper. There are tips and guidance there. And as Tiffany mentioned, we're offering training to your market participants. This is a free training the exchange can host. And so feel free to reach out to us and we can schedule that. And as also mentioned in the discussions, if you want to have more detailed conversations with UN Women, IFC local offices in your country, reach out to the SSE. We'll connect the dots. We'll put you in touch. And you can take the conversation forward. But we do, in closing, I just encourage all exchanges to take action, to make an effort. We all know you don't have a magic wand. You don't control everything that happens in your marketplace, but you do have an important position and an important voice to help convene these various actors from government, civil society, market participants to make change in your marketplace. So with that, we thank you all for joining this webinar. Again, we congratulate the exchanges that have done well in this ranking. For all the other exchanges, we encourage you to take action, and we look forward to speaking with you bilaterally in the days and weeks to come. So thank you all. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.